Today is a day of celebration because it seems Pete Buttigieg, aka Rat Boy, has ended his own career. We're gonna check that out.
One issue that's increasingly dividing both parties is the war in Gaza. More than half of Senate Democrats just voted to oppose the sale of over $500 million worth of U.S. bombs and guns to Israel. A lot of them are longtime supporters of Israel. Would you have voted to oppose sending those weapons?
I think we need to insist that if American taxpayer funding is going to weaponry that is going to Israel, that is not going to things that shock the conscience. And look, we see images every day that shock the conscience. So much of this is complicated, but what's not complicated is that if
What is his argument? It's not the actual death that matters, but you can't disturb the masses. You can't upset the wine moms. What the hell is this argument already? What the what?
if a child is starving because of a choice made by a government, that is unconscionable. And I think, especially
What's with this creepy smile also? Oh my god, I'm like 5 seconds in, it's already so fucked.
including voices who care about Israel, who believe in Israel's right to exist, who have stood with Israel in response to the unbelievable cruelty and terrorism of October 7th. I think there's a reason why so many of those voices are speaking up now too, because this is not just something that is on its face and in itself a moral catastrophe. It is also a catastrophe for Israel for the long run.
How do you think the next administration?
At least he acknowledges that a lot of the people who are late to speak up about what's happening to Palestinians are just doing it in their own interest. I mean, he's included in that camp, obviously. He's not an Israeli, but for him and a lot of Democrat politicians, to the extent they do speak out, it's just in interest of their own career. But from what I've seen about this interview and the reaction online to it, it doesn't seem like Pete did a good enough job of that.
Should handle our relationship with Israel? Do you think it should change based on what Netanyahu has done the last several years?
Well, certainly Netanyahu can't be the only voice or the only compass for what should happen in the U.S.-Israel relationship. And no matter how strongly, or especially because of how strongly you might believe in Israel's right to exist and defend itself, you don't have to make excuses for the choices that Netanyahu is making, especially because they are often made not only in the name of the Israeli people, but in the name of a U.S. alliance. I think that we, as Israel's strongest ally and friend, you put your arm around your friend when there's something like this going on and talk about what we're prepared to do together. It cannot.
Oh, you've done plenty together as friends. I don't think it's the time for that anymore, Pete.
Certainly cannot be what we see right now from this administration and this president talking about beachfront property in Gaza before he's prepared to talk about human suffering in Gaza.
Do you think it's time to recognize a Palestinian state?
I think that's a profound question that arouses a lot of the biggest problems that have happened with Israel's survival, Israel's right to survival in the diplomatic scene. And many of the people who have taken that step historically have done so for different reasons than what we see happening with European countries. I think we need to step back and we need to do whatever it takes to ensure that there is a real two-state solution and that no one, not even the likes of Netanyahu, can veto the international community's commitment to a two-state solution where you have Palestine.
First of all, it's the U.S. that consistently vetoes any kind of recognition of Palestine as an official member nation at the United Nations. It's not Netanyahu. You don't get to blame Netanyahu for that one. Second of all, what the hell was that non-answer? He's asked if he believes in the recognition of Palestine as a state, and he says that arouses a lot of questions about Israel's survival, but we must move towards a two-state solution. Dude, if you want a two-state solution, the answer to that question is yes. It's not a bunch of word salad bullshit. I can see why everyone was pissed off about this. Dude has just shot his chances at being president. There's polls coming out right now, 8% of Democratic voters support what Israel's doing in Gaza. 8%. You got 92% against you, Pete. What are you going to do? You can't... Why even play both sides of this issue like you are? Why?
Palestinians and Israelis living with safety, with security, with rights. I believe that can happen, but we have to actually show some commitment to it.
We were talking earlier about our kids. Yeah. On one hand, I feel like having kids has made me more committed to politics because of the...
All right, do they even talk about Gaza? Was that just the one token question now? What? Do you love your kids, Pete? Are you a dad?
Moment will be like, or for that matter, a moment much sooner in the middle of this century when I still hope I'm around, but me what it was like in the 2020s, the same way I asked my parents.
All right. Okay, that was the only substantive question in this hour and 20 long minute interview. So we're gonna move on. And as much as Pete Buttigieg is trying to be shoved down our throats as a future Democratic presidential candidate by the establishment and the Democratic leadership, there's somebody who's being even more astroturfed and shoved in our faces. And that is this freak here, Mrs. Hot Dog vendor lady herself, Elissa Slotkin. This was 2 weeks ago. Let's listen to this. I think this is also like career ending. Not just for whichever one of her staffers got her on the show, by the way, which was obviously a huge mistake for her, politically, but I think it's hard to imagine someone like this having, prospects as a presidential candidate in 2028 or 2032. Like after this kind of answers in this kind of interview. Most of you might remember Slotkin here. She's a new senator, but good old Chucky Schumer put her up as the person to respond to Trump's most recent State of the Union address. And she spent like half of it or over half of it like praising Republicans in the sense of like, oh, I worked for George Bush and I like Reagan and stuff, like just completely insane, especially for this era of politics. At the time I was saying like, could you imagine Republicans ever saying like, oh yeah, Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter, they were great? Like never in a million fucking years. She doesn't have to do that. You're allowed to just be on the team that you're on as a politician. You don't have to like talk about how great your Republicans would be so awesome if they just got rid of Trump. Like, no, that's like the most ahistorical, counterfactual. Like, Trump could never have existed and they would have found a different goofball to do these exact same things and to lead the exact same movement. It's about billionaires and wealth. It's about billionaires and wealth concentration. It's not about an individual person. So it was an embarrassing response and is exactly what we don't need at this time, but this is the lady. This is who they want to be the next Democratic candidate. So as we're watching this, just keep that in mind and maybe find some happiness in the fact that it seems very, very unlikely at this point that Chucky Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries are going to get what they want, and this lady becoming this former CIA agent in the Middle East becoming the next Democratic candidate. She's the closest thing to like a deep state plant, like a deep state op in politics that we've ever had, I think. And it's kind of crazy. Anyway, let's listen to the interview.
But Senator, it's not just a political issue, it's also a moral issue is what I'm trying to get to. So let's talk about those, calling of balls and strikes, if you will. Mm-hmm. So first of all, do you accept that Israel has a policy of enforced famine and starvation in the Gaza Strip?
I think I literally put my name on a letter yesterday or last night that says like a policy of starvation, people are starting to starve. And in general, I mean, I served in places like Ramadi and Fallujah. I watched in 2004 and 2005, Al-Qaeda terrorists drag American citizens behind a vehicle until they died, right? Like horrible, and then string them up, like a lynching.
Okay.
We still had a responsibility to get aid into Fallujah, despite the fact that we were fighting al-Qaeda cells in Fallujah, and I have been clear about that.
So this is a crime against humanity. Forced starvation is a crime against humanity.
The occupying power has a responsibility to get aid into the war zone, period.
So
by the law of war.
So in addition, do you accept that the Israeli plan, as reported by Haaretz, as discussed openly by ministers like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, as backed by the President of the United States, is forced ethnic cleansing?
I think we have, as recently as yesterday, the prime.
Listen to her. They won't answer questions like that directly. They just won't do it. It's the same shit that we just watched Pete do. This is crazy. Just say yes or no. Don't we have to look at what?
Minister of Israel talking about forced migration into certain areas and then potentially out of the country. That is not legal. That is not on any international standard since World War II. And I've been clear about that. So I would
not
ask
a clear
for
answer.
a little bit of an open mind.
Well, what I would ask is, listen, I'm a YouTuber. You know, I have my words. That's all I have.
Yeah.
But you're a United States senator. Like you're not the president, but you have power. So what are you going to do? Because so far what we've seen, I mean, you voted for some of the aid that's been used to massacre children and innocents. You know, you have backed Israel, as far as I can tell, from your voting record at almost every turn. You voted for a definition of anti-Semitism that would, codify anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. You voted as a member of the House to sanction the ICC for indicting Benjamin Netanyahu, who you just admitted is a war criminal, by your own words. So are you going to join Senator Angus King, Senator Bernie Sanders in saying no more aid to this country that is committing war crimes against innocent civilians?
It's Krystal's doing real journalism here, and it's so jarring because we never hear it, especially nowadays. You never hear this shit anymore. This should just be like what every journalist is sounding like when they talk to politicians on any network. You don't hear this. And it's very refreshing, but it's also kind of sad that this is restricted to a YouTube channel. They're the only ones that can actually do something like this.
I think the first thing, if you're asking about what to do with power, and I would offer that right now Democrats own nothing in Washington. So
don't play powerless with me. Though.
I'm
You're a
not
United States senator. There are things you can do.
In terms
She just went over the lady's voting record, and she's like, "Well, Republicans outnumber us, so I might as well just vote with them, right?" What?
of who runs our foreign policy, I just think it's interesting, right, that there was a ton of protests when Democrats were in charge.
There was a protest in Manhattan yesterday.
Okay. I think it's fair to say, just to be honest, that back and forth, the number of protests that go on now versus before.
Well, they were part of your political coalition.
Well, not to mention, Senator Slotkin,
that's fair.
Obviously, I'm here.
Yeah.
I was very upset over the Biden administration policy. And as you can tell, I'm very upset over the Trump administration policy.
Yeah.
So let's deal not in strawman, but me and here and now.
In terms of the tools that I have, the tools that we have in general, to me, the most important thing is a pressurized campaign to get aid into people who are starving. That to me is the number one, because that's the one is urgent and today. And that.
But will you cut off aid to Israel so long as they're committing crimes against humanity?
There is a difference between a weapon to protect a country from incoming missiles versus other type. Offensive and defensive weapons are different.
So would you support offensive weapons ban? Would you stop any offensive aid to Israel?
That certainly, to me, would be a place to look, but I'm not going to cut off a blanket.
She won't even say yes to that. Oh my God. This is so bad. This is so pathetic.
Next sale on a defensive weapon comes through. No.
I also reject that because, for example, if Senator Slotkin, if you were asked to support defensive weapons for Iran, defensive weapons for Russia, you wouldn't back that.
No, but Iran, but
they're defensive. They're just protecting civilians, right? So how is it different?
But because Israel's being shot at.
So is Russia.
So is Iran.
Yeah.
So is Russia.
Ukraine's shooting at Russia right now.
I'm sorry. This is the difference between allies, partners, and adversaries.
Why is it an ally then? What are they doing right now, which makes it an ally?
I think allied relationships, just like Lithuania right now, like an allied relationship or a partner relationship is a long-standing relationship of information sharing and diplomacy. And that is, to me, it's not a like every day we decide Lithuania is our ally or not. We're allied or not. And sometimes we have big breaks with allies, right? Sometimes we have difficult moments with allies. Sometimes it goes the wrong way with allies. But an allied relationship is a long-term relationship.
It's hard for me to understand why we should ally. Like, I'm sure you believe in, like, or claim to believe in liberal human rights. Why would we ally with a nation that is committing a genocide and live streaming it?
Can I ask, literally, like this, I think about this from the mirror image way, because I do not support the things that Donald Trump is doing, right? But I'm an American. So do I want other countries to look at America and be like, we can't stand Donald Trump, so we're going to end any longstanding relationship we have with the American people. We're going to cut off any support we give them on information sharing or intelligence.
That would be pretty wise. Considering Donald Trump is working with Palantir, I know you're CIA lady, I know you're a CIA agent, and you really don't like the idea, but yeah, I hope every single one of America's allies cuts them off from information. I don't want Trump funneling that information into Palantir and Amazon and Facebook and God knows who, and just leaking it, as soon as it gets into those people's hands. Again, Trump is the one who signed into law protections for large tech companies to sell information to literally whoever. And then he signs these same big tech companies to have like Pentagon and CIA contracts. So yeah, I mean, as long as a country's sharing information with America as it stands, that information is available for any actor anywhere in the world to basically just buy. Okay? So yes, I would like that. I would like all these countries to turn on America and say, get your shit together, or we're not doing shit with you.
Sharing, like, we are not just our elected leaders. And I think that's the thing that's been lost in the conversation.
So B'Tselem and another Israeli human rights organization joined the global consensus, Amnesty International, some 800 scholars. There was a piece from an Israeli scholar in the New York Times in saying this is a genocide. Do you accept, even Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday came out and said it's a genocide. Do you accept that? And if you do, I mean, what responsibility does a United States senator have? This is a nation that, we send every year billions of dollars to aid that you have, voted for and supported. Like, what responsibility does a United States senator have to prevent genocide and to stop genocide that we see ongoing?
We have a responsibility up till today to ensure that food is getting in.
Is it
so
a
that
genocide?
People don't starve. I don't know that I'd use.
So she's not saying stop the bombing. She's not saying stop the occupation. She's not saying stop the apartheid. She's not even, she said something about forcing Palestinians to move, but she's not even saying like stop the ethnic cleansing. She's not saying stop bombing hospitals. She's not saying stop killing journalists. She's just saying, well, we just have to make sure that food gets in while we're doing that. And now here she goes denying genocide. Great.
Use that term.
Why?
But it is violating the law of war.
Why don't you use the term though?
Because I think, it's to
Because I'm CIA.
me, do I think it's ethnic cleansing, which is what I think of in genocide? I don't know if it meets that definition.
They're
Yeah, but
announcing
didn't you
it.
say it earlier that it was ethnic cleansing? You said that they wanted to force.
Sagar's a conservative, by the way, and he's like, hey, 5 minutes ago, weren't you saying that like they are trying to force all the Palestinians to migrate and leave?
I mean, this is open from the Israeli government. Like, they're saying it. Their
And from
Minister
Trump,
of National
too.
Security, they come out and they're like, we don't need shells. We need shells, not food. And we need to encourage migration.
Look,
they're saying
you're
Yeah.
not going to get me to
Yeah.
support what the Israeli government is saying right now. I think the point I was trying to make is it's not just about, like, we have relationships with nations over time, regardless of who their leaders are. We have really tough moments.
Uh-oh, can't say the G word, don't want to upset the long-standing relationship. This is so cowardly. And this is, I think the conclusion to draw from this is if these ghouls can't stand up in this context at this moment, what are they going to stand up for? What like what are they willing to go against their donors to do? Nothing. They will always just follow what the donors want. In her case, it's probably some array of like deep state CIA bullshit that she's trying to, appease. It's so obvious that if they won't protect human rights, if they won't even speak out and call the most obvious genocide in a century a genocide, then like they're never going to. They're never going to stand on the right side of history, no matter how bad something is. That's not what they care about. It's disgusting.
Moments, we have easier moments, but that doesn't, so I'm not willing to say that like I hate everything ever.
Sure,
into
but
the,
so
the future.
even if you accept that they're committing a genocide, you still wouldn't cut off their aid?
I think that defensive aid and offensive aid are different things, and I think at this point,
So if
I just love what they brought. I think it was Sagar who brought up earlier, like, well, what about like Russia defensive aid? What about defensive aid for, I don't know, North Korea? Like, where do you draw the line? And apparently genocide isn't enough. She just directly said, even if I had agreed that they were doing a genocide, I would still want to send them billions of dollars in defensive aid. And it's like, that almost seems honest, again, until you realize she's not taking that stance with like any other country, basically. So that's not her real stance.
they're
Nazi
doing
Germany,
every single day.
if Nazi Germany said we want defensive aid, I mean, it's just you have to see where they're all weapons that are being shipped. In
They're
another
not using
context,
the weapons that they're using right now. I mean, to be honest, if you look at what's happening on the ground, the military part of this conflict is, for the most part, over. What they are doing,
Senator,
every single day is around aid, and they are hurting people
they have
around the
slaughtered over
delivery of
1,000
aid.
people who were starving people just trying to get aid.
That is
I
not
know you
high,
know this.
That's not high intensity bombs. That's not the weapons that you that.
So what's the argument? We might as well just keep sending them bombs because right now they're shooting more people with guns? What?
We were talking about 2 years ago. It's just not. I'm sorry. Every single day, the military reports that I read, they are traditional, like, this is a military that has a bad strategy. It is not the bombs that we were seeing 2 years ago.
It's not a military that has a bad strategy.
What? It's fine to send them billions of dollars in bombs because they're not even using the bombs right now. They're just shooting people. Okay.
Strategy is forced starvation
That
and
is-
ethnic
that is
cleansing.
not a-
That's
that is-
their strategy, and they're accomplishing it very effectively with the full backing of the United States government, including sadly Democrats.
Well-
and so a couple more questions that I know you have to run. I'm curious why you condemned Rashida Tlaib for using the rally chant, from the river to the sea, something she said for her evokes equal rights, and you have not condemned Randy Fine, who said that Gazans should, quote, starve away, who floated that the Gaza Strip should be nuked, who called Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Zoran as well, called them Muslim terrorists. Where is the concern over him?
I have no problem condemning Randy Fine, who I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry.
So I think this is a really good question because every time you ask Elissa Slotkin about a primary, about someone like Zoran, about anyone kind of challenging really corrupt Democrats or anything like that, she goes, oh, well, I'm a good little Michigan Democrat and I don't pay attention to other states and Michigan Democrats stick together. Rashida Tlaib is a Michigan Democrat. And this lady wants to censor Rashida Tlaib, but doesn't censor the Republicans who say openly Islamophobic things. Like it's the double standard is very, very transparent, and she hasn't mentioned it in this interview. So in this context, this doesn't maybe seem as bad as it does, but you listen to her in any other interview when she's asked about Zoran or whoever challenging Democrats, and she says, well, we Michigan Democrats, we stick together, we're all friends, we don't get involved in primaries or challenging each other or anything like that, we get along. And then Rashida Tlaib, who is the best congressperson in this US, basically, like, she has the best voting record out of any of them, this lady's willing to try to censor her. Okay.
I don't know who that person is. I have no problem condemning someone who talks like that.
Senator, we have to ask your last question because your staff is telling us. Do you think AIPAC should register as a foreign lobby?
I don't know the answer to that. I think that I know plenty of people who think they should. You know, I don't.
It's kind of a cop-out answer, don't you think?
I mean,
Yeah.
I literally, I just guess I'd have to look at the definition. I certainly have had my tough moments with that organization, and
So will you stop accepting their funding?
you got to get your facts straight. I have not been endorsed by AIPAC. I have not. I'm sorry. I was the first Jew
You were
elected to the Senate that was not endorsed by any Jewish group. AIPAC, J Street.
You've been the recipient of their funds.
In 2018, when I first ran, people who were members, yes, but I've not been endorsed since then. And I just got to be honest. Like, I think that this is where facts really matter. I've had very, very difficult conversations with my colleagues in that organization, and made a choice back in 2021. 2021, so that was the first time I was up for re-election. So I understand that there's a sort of, like, again, cornered position, but to me, like, I call balls and strikes as someone who served in the Middle East.
I have one more question I have to ask you. You know, we do the show. I really do my best to try to uphold, like, you know, basic human rights, Palestinian humanity, oppose the killing of innocent civilians wherever that happens. And I have to tell you, like, I feel really guilty that I'm not doing enough. I think all the time about, I'm a mom, I think all the time about those moms who can't feed their babies. Those babies are starving to death. And I just want to know, like, you're a United States Senator, you did vote for some of the bombs that were dropped on refugee camps. When kids have been sniped in the head, tents firebombed, people set on fire. The entire Gaza Strip turned into rubble. And now we're seeing these emaciated bodies of babies starving to death every day. And I mean, I'm like,
I know what you can do.
Does it eat you up? Does it eat you up? Do you think, like, what more could I do? Do you regret any of your votes? Do you regret
let me tell
any
you what
sort
I
of
was working on this morning. A group of Jewish rabbis and Muslim community leaders came together with a proposal that we are working on just getting, like, if we can't get other aid in, at least get baby formula and nutritional supplements for children in. Let that be kind of a green light. Never has a problem. No one's trying to eat baby.
So she's not against the firebombing, but make sure there's baby feed going in while we genocide them. Great. If she was around in the 40s, she'd be saying, like, let's not shut down Auschwitz. Let's just make sure they have Band-Aids and snacks in there.
Baby formula other than a baby, right? That is the proposal that I've been working on all night and this morning. So in terms of what we're trying to do,
don't stop the nitrous oxide gas shipments into the concentration camps. Just also send in food. Thank you, I'm Elissa Slotkin.
there's not a moment that goes by that this isn't something that I'm working on and something that my own community, not online, but my own community has practical things that they want to do. They're willing to raise the money. They're willing to buy the formula. They're willing to do whatever we need to do to get it shipped in. That's how I spend my time.
But you're not willing to cut off aid to Israel.
To me, that to me is the most effective thing that I can do today.
This is a subtle question. Your staff is telling us you absolutely have to go. So we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming.
Senator.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate you. We will see you all tomorrow. Or Counterpoints. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Nice. The first comment. Let's thank the staffer who got Slotkin to do this. Gone but not forgotten. This is the first real journalism I've seen in years. That last question by Krystal hit hard. Because I think that's something that so many of us like relate to. is just like, because it's a lot different, this genocide, than previous ones where, you know, there was at least like the amount of information that was getting out in real time was limited. Whereas this one, we have access to all the information in real time. And so every one of us has to think like, I'm living through this. I'm aware of what's happening. Like, am I really doing enough? Um, like, like, will I be able to live guilt-free the rest of my life knowing what happened in Gaza? And like, even somebody like Krystal, who's like, since the very start of, you know, since things really blew up, in terms of the invasion of Gaza and whatever happened in October a couple years back, she's been focusing on this as her primary issue in her career. And even she's like, I feel like I'm not doing enough. So I really appreciate that question, because I think it's just somebody that I just think it's something that so many people listening to this could relate to. And you know, if there's like a human, if there's a human somewhere inside Elissa Slotkin, then you have to assume that she, living her comfortable, wealthy life as one of the most powerful people in America, must, you know, be having to reconcile with that to some degree. If she's not just a complete sociopath, which I'm kind of leaning towards the CIA op who's lying and constantly like contradicting herself and her previous voting record. I'm slightly leaning more towards she's a sociopath, but I don't know. Let's just look at the comments for Pete real quick. This one, he talks about starvation and slaughter in Gaza like a chatbot trying not to offend a Nazi. Okay, so again, just for some context on this, and to like see how real this is getting now with the Democratic base, at least, this is an hour and 20 long minute interview. There was one question about Gaza. Every single one of these top comments is all about that one question. No, it's like the rest of the interview didn't even matter. People only cared about that one thing. Because it's just such a... It's more than a litmus test. It's just such an obvious barometer. Like, if you fail that, you fail everything. If you can't speak out on that, then whatever other words you're offering are meaningless. Like, you obviously can't be taken in good faith, whatever you're saying. Read the room, Pete. We're not on board with genocide. Breaking Points wouldn't have let him get away with all those Palestine-related non-answer answers and hollow platitudes. Listen to this. I liked him a lot, but no, I can't stand hearing him say that you must put your arms around Israel. Even people who were, like, tricked into, like, being Pete enjoyers in the past are like, okay, this is enough. Pete's answer on Israel should be disqualifying. See? So these are your Democratic presidential candidates for 2028. They have no chance. They have no chance. There's no way that there's, like, as long as somebody who's like not completely genocidal and can at least, like, you know, as someone who's even like half decent on this issue is running, they're going to be able to use these clips so effectively to ruin them. All right, and now we're going to do a bit of a palate cleanser. Oh, I'm going to give them a little likey for that one, because that was a good interview. We're going to do a palate cleanser and look at a real Democratic politician, what it actually means to be resistance, okay? It's a nice one. Look at the title of this video. Release your client list, Cuomo. So smart. So smart. Like, this just plugs it right in. Like, what do you think is showing up 99% of the time when people search client lists nowadays? What do you think algorithmically that gets plugged into? Not even just algorithmically, but just like connotatively for the average like consumer of information and news and whatnot. What do you think client list makes people think of? So fucking good. Release the Cuomo list. I love it. All right, let's watch the video.
4 years ago, Andrew Cuomo resigned in disgrace, and you probably know why.
The governor's office kept the nursing home death data secret.
Cuomo aggressively groped an aide.
Inappropriately touched a female state trooper.
Use of state resources for a COVID-19 memoir.
Less well known is what he spent the last 4 years doing, besides getting trounced in the Democratic primary. In 2022, Cuomo started Innovation Strategies LLC to represent individuals and corporations in a variety of matters. Definitely not vague. Last year, it raked in more than $500,000. Who paid for Cuomo's services? He refuses to say. But what journalists have been able to piece together is troubling. In April, Bloomberg revealed that Cuomo advised a cryptocurrency exchange based in the Seychelles as it faced federal investigations. Then in May, Politico reported that Cuomo failed to disclose $2.6 million in stock options to the New York City Conflicts of Interest Board. His excuse? The stocks were technically owned by Innovation Strategies LLC, of which he's the sole proprietor. Finally, in June, the New York Times uncovered that Cuomo had worked with his longtime friend Andrew Farkas on a luxury marina project in Puerto Rico. Farkas' previous partner on luxury marinas in the Caribbean? Jeffrey Epstein.
We had a financier like none other, Andrew Farkas.
That's the thing about Andrew Cuomo. Once you think you found out about all of his scandals, you find out about another, and then another, and then probably another. But if my friend, the disgraced former governor of the state of New York, feels that's unfair, Habibi, release your client list.
Damn! Habibi, release your client list. That's amazing. Also, is there anything grosser you could possibly do as an I guess you could, like, literally just go into a native reserve and start shooting people and try to set up, like a detention center for immigrants or something. That's, like, the only thing I can think of that's worse than, like, taking a decommissioned military base in Puerto Rico, you know, their undemocratic colony, and starting a luxury resort with one of Epstein's business partners. Ugh. Ugh. That's so gross. But Zoran is a king for even just doing this. Even if Zoran wasn't a candidate and he was just making videos like this, I'd be like, oh, I love this guy. But he's gonna beat this guy's ass. He's gonna beat this guy's ass. We gotta love it. And yeah, pretty shady when you start a consulting company that, what did he describe it as? Engaged in the private practice of law, representing individuals and corporations in a variety of matters. That's so fucking sketchy, man. That's where he get the Israel money from. That's where he get the Zionist money from. Anyway, go join your local DSA.